Now, Britain's biggest water company has been in the firing line today, Thames Water. It seems the only fresh thing about them is the criticism of their failure to partake in a £180 million industry-wide initiative to reduce pollution in England's waterways. The Environment Agency recorded over 300,000 sewage spills in 2022, an average of 824 a day. Well, one man is so infuriated with the UK's filthy track record that he would abandon the Conservative Party he represented as an MEP and vote Labour if they did something about it. He also just so happens to be the father of former Prime Minister Boris Johnson. And here to explain why, environmentalist and former Conservative MEP, Mr. Stanley Johnson. Stanley, very good evening to you. Welcome to the Independent Republic.
Well, lovely to be here. Lovely to be here, Mike.
Excellent.
Yes, I think this is a very crucial moment for people like me. Here I am, going to be 84 years old in the course of this summer. And what is my main concern? My main concern is not actually the survival of one political party or another, but my main concern is the kind of world we're going to leave to our children. Now, we come to it. This government has actually had a very good record on the environment. Yes, it was Boris's government. Yes, he made some sound speeches in the General Assembly. He did a great job at the Glasgow COP. He helped get major decisions taken as far as nature protection internationally is concerned. He's got the Climate Act going, and we're on target for that. But it seems to me that we must be absolutely clear that the job isn't finished. By the way, I pay tribute here also to environment ministers. One of them, for example, Rebecca Power, is a local constituency MP down in Taunton, where I live. Rebecca Coffey tried very hard to fight off, the attempt which was made by my friend Jacob Rees-Mogg to actually wipe out all the environmental legislation we had coming from the EU. But where are we now? In a very, very challenging situation. And yes, I said possibly frivolously, not that frivolously, that I would vote Labour if I was convinced that Labour Party was coming forward with a real solid package on environment and the others were failing. So it's a challenge, if you like, it's a challenge to the Tory party, to the Liberal Democrats and to Labour. But why is it so crucial now? As far as I'm concerned, the crucial thing is actually we've come out of Europe. We're not protesting against that. I was not for coming out of Europe. Many people weren't. But my concern now is that we have to rebuild those bridges for Europe. And what I want to hear a politician say, and I want to hear a Conservative politician say, is yes, we're out, but we accept you Brexit, you fix it. We accept that. And what does that mean? It means actually taking some very, very positive steps now. And what I said yesterday is one of the positive steps we can take, and I don't want to go too long on this one, is actually to rejoin the European Environment Agency. We wouldn't have this water pollution problem we just talked about, Mike, if we'd
well, the problem it seems to be
rejoin that agency, and other countries already there: Norway, Switzerland, Turkey, Iceland, Liechtenstein, other Baltic countries, countries in the Bosphorus region. Absolutely vital that they're there, and we have a chance to come back. And I really want to say, I believe at this stage in my life, the real priority is for us as politicians to say what is going to be best for our country, for the environment.
Yes, but
we have done a good job. We must go on.
But hang on, Stanley, because we don't want to run out of time before I get to answer your initial statement. Here's the problem. Not very many people agree with you, because the environment is less important to people now than it's ever been, as they face different problems, as they face economic problems, as they face problems with immigration, as they face problems with the cost of living, the size of their mortgage. They're very happy for you to bang on about environmental rights, but what they don't want is for you to waste a load of money trying to do things that aren't really capable of being done. Now, let me ask you this question. Boris Johnson is still being now touted as the saviour of the Tory party. He's being told to go and campaign in red wall seats. Apparently there's been some thawing of relations between he and Rishi Sunak. And so apparently Boris may well be back. What say you?
Well, I tell you something. Obviously, I don't have any kind of, there's no way I can say, I can't say, look, I'm going to support you, I'm not going to support you. I said that I would absolutely support him if he came forward and said, look, we don't now need to really go forward in the rebuilding of the bridges with Europe, in the re-emphasizing some of the stuff we started off. I very much support him for that. I would absolutely support him for that. I think that there's a real chance, but I think, honestly, I don't really be sound frivolous on this. If Boris was to say, look, actually, I think my job now is to join the Reform Party and try and energize the right wing of the Tory party, I think that would be a colossal mistake. I see, if insofar as I thought about this at all, if what you say is true, that Boris has this colossal energizing force, fine, then let it be used in the right direction. And for example, I'd like him to say, yeah, we do think, and here's a nice symbolic totemic thing we can do. Rejoin the European Environment.
Well, I'll tell you what.
How can we possibly be?
Yes, but Stanley, if you said that to your, but Stanley, if you said that to Boris Johnson and you sent him to the Red Wall with that message, don't worry, here's my priority. We're going to rejoin all of those things that we left the EU behind for. He'd probably not escape with all of his clothes on. You'd end up having to get him back on a train and rescue him from the things that people would do to him.
I think you underestimate the intelligence of the Red Wall.
It's not about intelligence, it's about priorities.
Well, priorities, everybody actually knows that you can't have economic growth without a decent environmental policy.
Of course you can.
You absolutely can't. And we won't even have a decent trading relationship with Europe if we go on, as it were, failing from the environmental point of view, because they won't. Well,
their farmers are up in arms, driving tractors around the nations of Europe because they're being given these ridiculous net zero targets that they have to hit. And I'm afraid that's all we've got time for. Stanley, we'll have to get you on for longer. Try and make it into the studio so that we can have you on for a long time. So I have a lot of questions for you, but we're out of time for right now. Let's bring in the CEO of River Action UK, Mr. James Wallace. James, sorry to keep you waiting there. It's a bit difficult to shut Stanley up at times. He's maybe got a point about certain environmental concessions that should be being made and improvements, but he didn't really talk about the rivers and the waterways, which is what we're kind of wanting to talk about tonight. It seems to me that the pollution in our rivers and waterways is worse than it's ever been.
Good evening, and thanks for having me on, Mike. Yes, it really is as bad as it can be. We're known as the dirty man of Europe, Mike. Yeah. It's as simple as that. Every single river in Britain is polluted. England, no worse or less so than Wales and Scotland. And this is down to a combination of deregulation. So the Environment Agency, the regulator, has had 70% of its monitoring enforcement budget cut. So if you're a polluter like a water company, like the Thames that you mentioned, Thames Water, they can get away with profiteering with impunity. And look at, as the image shows here, look at the state of our seas and our rivers too. Wildlife is on the verge of collapse. Rivers like the Wye have been suffering from a deluge of agricultural pollution. The River Thames is constantly flooded with pathogens like E. coli, putting swimmers, canoeists and rowers' lives at risk. And when I say lives, I really mean that. One day someone's going to die from this, and we've got to act now.
Yes, I think that is very much a priority that everyone can rally round. How is it possible that the water companies have been able to become so useless? We know what they do. They pay fines rather than improve their infrastructure. I happen to know that down in Bexhill, where they've got a terrible sewage problem from a pipe that goes out there, I happen to know they're fixing that because they're working on it even as we speak, because I take my dog there every weekend. Is there anything being improved at the moment that we can at least say something's happening?
Well, I'd like to think so. Unfortunately, as we saw today, even now, we've had an announcement, a very glorious announcement from the government saying £180 million extra going into water companies. And what they really mean is that's coming from us, the bill payer. And that fundamentally is the problem.